Hi, everybody. So, our next couple of lessons are going to be about fairy tales. A fairy tale is a type of story that has certain story elements. Most fairy tales start off with once upon a time or a long, long time ago. Most fairy tales have a hero and a villain, and they usually will teach you some kind of lesson, things not to do or things to do. We're going to start off with some classic fairy tales, and then we're going to read some what is called fractured fairy tales, where they take the original version of the fairy tale and they change something in it to create a whole nother story. So the first fairy tale that we're going to be listening to is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Very old fairy tale. It's been rewritten many, many times over. And this is the original story. So let's take a listen to this one first. And there it starts off. Once upon a time. Once upon a time, there lived a little girl named Goldilocks, who was very, very good, except sometimes she forgot to do things that her mother told her to do. Yes, she did. Fortunately, most of those things she forgot to do were very small things, like forgetting to tie her shoe or forgetting to wipe her mouth after eating bread and jam, and so that didn't matter too much. But once in a while, Goldilocks would forget not to do things that her mother told her not to do, and that kind of forgetting would lead to much more serious trouble. Very like the trouble that happened on the day of this story. It all began one Sunday morning when Goldilocks asked if she could go to the meadow and pick flowers. You may go, said her mother, but make sure to not go into the woods. I've heard that a family of bears lives there. Yes, ma'am, said Goldilocks, and she picked up her flower basket and she left out the door. But very soon she saw a butterfly and she began to chase it. And as luck would have it, that butterfly led her to the very edge of the woods. And then, just then, Goldilocks saw a pretty yellow bird. And wanting to see more pretty birds, she forgot not to do what her mother told her not to do, and she followed a path into the woods looking for those pretty birds. Very soon, Goldilocks came to a very curious little house there in the woods. And oh, she thought it was so pretty that straight away she peeked through the kitchen door. And in the meantime, a family of bears who lived there had just left out the front door for a walk while their bowls of breakfast porridge cooled off on their kitchen table. Hello, called Goldilocks. Is anybody home? Well, there was nobody home, of course, and Goldilocks should have turned around and gone back to the meadow. But oh, it was so ever so pretty and curious inside there that even though her mother had told her not to go into people's houses without being invited, she forgot not to, and she went in anyway. Straight away, she saw those porridge bowls on the kitchen table, and yes, that porridge smelled so delicious that I'm afraid she forgot that her mother told her not to touch other people's food, and she decided that she had to have a taste. So she did. First, she took a taste from the great, huge Papa Bear bowl, but oh my, oh no, that porridge was much too hot. So then she took a taste from the middle-sized Mama Bear bowl, but that porridge was just too cold. And so then she took a taste from a wee small baby bear bowl, and she found it neither too hot nor too cold, but just right, and so delicious that without really meaning to, she ate it all up. Then she went into the parlor, and there she saw 3 curious chairs. Goldilocks thought they were the most curious chairs she'd ever seen. And in fact, they seemed so curious that even though her mother told her not to use people's things without their permission, she forgot not to. And she climbed up and she sat down in the great, huge Papa Bear chair. But only after a moment or two, she found that this great, huge chair was much too hard for her. So she climbed down and she sat in the medium-sized Mama Bear chair, but it was much too soft for her. So next she sat in the wee small Baby Bear chair, and this chair she found neither too hard nor too soft, but it was just right. But when she leaned back to make herself more comfortable, it broke and dropped her to the floor with a crash. Well, you might think that being dropped on the floor like that would have put a stop to her being so curious. But no, it didn't, sadly no. For just then Goldilocks saw the curious little stairs, and she was so intrigued that she went up them. And at the top she found an even more curious and pretty room, and even though her mother had often told her not to be nosy about other people's private business, she forgot not to, and she went in, and there she saw 3 curious beds. And straight away she climbed up to the great big huge Papa Bear bed. But very like the great huge Papa Bear chair, Goldilocks found it much too hard for her. So she tried the medium-sized Mama Bear bed, and like the Mama Bear chair, she found it too soft for her. And at last she tried the wee small Baby Bear bed, and yes, she found it neither too hard nor too soft, but just right. And so very, very comfortable without really needing to, she fell sound asleep. And then, just then, the Bear family returned from their walk. The great, huge Papa Bear went over to the kitchen table, and in his great, huge voice, he said, "Someone's been eating my porridge." Then Mama Bear looked at her bowl, and she said in her medium-sized voice, "Someone's been eating my porridge." And the Baby Bear looked at his bowl, and in his wee, small voice, he said, "Someone's been eating my porridge, and they ate it all up." Then they went into the parlor. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," said Papa Bear in his great, huge voice. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," said Mama Bear in her medium-sized voice. "And someone's been sitting in my chair, and they broke it all up." Cautiously, the bears went upstairs. Papa Bear looked at his bed, and in his great, huge voice, he said, "Someone's been sleeping in my bed." "And someone's been sleeping in my bed," said Mama Bear. "And someone's been sleeping in my bed," cried Baby Bear. "And here she is." Just then Goldilocks woke up. She looked up at the 3 bears who were looking at her. And just as fast she remembered that her mother had told her not to talk to strangers, and she didn't do it. No, indeed she didn't. Instead, she ran down the stairs, she ran through the kitchen, she ran out the door, and she ran and she ran and she ran all the way home. And from all that I've heard, Goldilocks' scary experience there in the woods that day did wonders to improve her memory. And while it's true that she still sometimes forgets to do small things like tying her shoe or wiping her mouth after eating bread and jam, Goldilocks never, ever forgot not to do what her mother told her not to do ever, ever again. Okay, so that's the original story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Now, there have been many versions that have been rewritten, and some of the elements have changed. Now, what I mean by story elements is maybe the characters have changed, the setting has changed, the problem has changed, the ending has changed. The author changed something about the original story and created a whole new story. And I have another version. This version is called Goatilocks. and the three bears. So what do you think's changed in the two? That would be the character. In the original story, Goldilocks is a little girl. In this story, the author decided to change Goldilocks into a goat and call it Goatilocks and the three bears. Now, making the character a goat, you'll see how it changes the whole story and creates a new story just by changing that one element. So let's take a listen. Goldilocks and the three bears. Once upon a time, there was a kid named Goldilocks. Now, they call baby goats kids. So there's Goldilocks. She lived down the road from a family of bears. When the bears went out for a walk one morning, well, you can probably guess what Goldilocks did. Inside the bear's home, Goldilocks found 3 bowls of porridge. She tasted the big bowl. It was too hot. She tasted the medium bowl. It was too cold. Then she tasted the little bowl. It was just right. So, what do you think she did? She ate it, of course. And she ate the spoon, too, because that's what goats do. She ate the porridge, the spoon, and everything. Next, Goldilocks found 3 chairs. She tried the big chair, just too hard. She tried the medium chair, just too soft. She tried the little chair, and ooh, it was just so right. So, what do you think she did? She ate it, because that's what goats do. She ate the whole thing, cushions and all. At this point, Goldilocks began to feel very sleepy. Upstairs, she found 3 beds. She tested the big bed. It was too lumpy. She tested the medium bed. Too squishy. Then she tested the little bed, and oh, it was just right. So, what do you think she did? She ate it, plus the blanket, the 2 pillows, and even a pair of pajamas. Then, with a contented sigh, Goldilocks fell fast asleep. Well, she must be very full. Shortly thereafter, the bears came home, and you could probably imagine all the commotion. Someone's been eating my porridge, said Papa Bear. Someone's been eating my porridge, said Mama Bear. Hey, where is my porridge? Asked Baby Bear. Where was it? The goat. Get a load of this, Papa Bear called from the dining room. Someone's been sitting in my chair. Gracious me, said Mama Bear. Someone's been sitting in my chair. Here's Baby Bear. Hey, where is my chair? Asked Baby Bear. It was gone. Well, they found the culprit upstairs. My bed, wailed Baby Bear. It's gone. Goldilocks opened her eyes. Above her stood the 3 bears staring down at her. Quickly, she jumped up and hooked it for home, which probably sounds like the end of the story, but the next day, Goldilocks woke up feeling, well, a little sheepish. She wanted to make things right with her neighbors, but how? Outside, she found the answer. How could the bears resist? Her gift was just so pretty, so thoughtful. It was just right. So, what's that beautiful flowers? It says, for the 3 bears. Guess what they did? They ate it. Delicious. The end. You can see. Just by changing the character, from Goldilocks, the little girl, to Goatilocks. Goats pretty much eat everything. So in the story, not only did the goat eat the porridge, but it ate the bowl, the spoon, it ate the chair, and it ate the bed. But she tried to make amends by giving them flowers, and it ended by them all eating the flowers too. So you can see that this fairy tale, just by changing the main character, has created an entire new story. So listen up for next time. We'll do 2 new fairy tales and compare them to see how they're alike and they're different. See you next time. Bye.